Chapter 58. Traversing Through Tunnels. Sword Hanging Above. Shi Qingxuan violently choked as Shiwudu squeezed his jaw and force-fed him the contents of the bowl. He spat and sputtered out more than half of the stuff, dirtying the front of his robes. Screaming, he slammed his head into the bowl to knock it from his brother's hands. Shiwudu fumed. "Go ahead, keep breaking them," he yelled. "There's plenty of medicine where that came from. Break one bowl and I'll bring 20 more. I'll keep forcing it down your throat until you drink it all. Ah! Can you just leave me alone? Just let me die!" Shi Qingxuan screamed. "I'm your brother," Shiwudu snapped. "If I don't take care of you, who will?" Shi Qingxuan ceased his screams and settled for twisting his head away. Shiwudu sat down on the side of the bed and softened his tone. "I've fixed your fan." "I don't want it anymore," Shi Qingxuan said. The Windmaster loved that rare spiritual device of his Windmaster fan. He'd often bring it out just to play with. Even at the height of winter, with snow choking the skies, he would flutter that fan undaunted. But now, he'd said he didn't want it anymore. Shilian was only growing more and more curious. "If you don't want it, that's fine as well. We'll use the opportunity to forge you a new spiritual device." Shi Qingxuan turned his head back to look at his brother. "I don't want a new one either. Just let me descend!" Shiwudu peered at him. "Descend? Descend where?" "Descend to the mortal realm," Shi Qingxuan replied. "I don't want to stay in the upper court anymore. I don't want to be a god anymore." Veins bulged on Shiwudu's fair brow. "What a joke! Throw away your godhood and return to the mortal realm. Do you think the mortal realm is some kind of wonderful place? Stop embarrassing yourself. I don't think you understand just how many people in the world want to ascend, or how many officials in the middle court would die to join the upper court." "That's right, I don't know!" Shi Qingxuan shouted, his anger obvious. "I just want to be a carefree, drifting vagabond. Is that so wrong?" "I won't permit it," Shiwudu snapped. "A carefree, drifting vagabond? Dream on. The color of his face changed abruptly. It seemed he'd received a private message that passed on worrisome news. With 2 fingers pressed against his temple, Shiwudu rose to his feet at once and listened intently. His face grew more and more serious, and he turned to Shi Qingxuan. "Stop adding to my troubles. I've been busy. I've no time to mind you. Once I return from my 3rd heavenly tribulation, you won't be able to act out like this any longer." Then, with a whirl of his sleeves, he swiftly left the bedchamber. Once it was clear that he was gone, Shilian silently flipped down. He pushed at the window, hoping to sneak in, but it wouldn't budge. Some sort of seal restriction must have been cast on it. He dared not force it open, lest he trip up any alarms associated with that spell. And so he could only call out in a quiet voice, "Lord Windmaster! Lord Windmaster!" Shi Qingxuan jerked on the bed. He turned his head, joy clear on his face. "Your Highness!" "It's me," Shilian responded. "What happened to you? I can't open this window. May I try coming in another way?" When confronted with a window that couldn't be opened by normal means, it was easy to guess the entry method a martial god would choose. Don't destroy anything!" Shi Qingxuan said hurriedly. "There are spells on all the windows and doors. If you force your way in, the whole palace of wind and water will know someone's here. They can only be opened from the inside, unless you're me or my brother." "But you're all tied up," Shilian pointed out. Shi Qingxuan started to struggle like mad. "Your Highness, wait a sec! Watch me flex these ropes right off!" Shilian watched as he rolled around on the bed in an immense struggle to break free, alternating between curling up like a shrimp and straightening out like an iron board. Shilian softly cheered him on. "Keep at it, my lord." He could tell with a cursory glance that the rope binding Shi Qingxuan wasn't a spiritual device. With Lord Windmaster's considerable power, it should have snapped with but a hook of his finger. Why was he having such trouble? Was Shi Qingxuan really so seriously hurt that he couldn't break free of simple bindings? All of a sudden, an odd movement came from under Shi Qingxuan's bed, and a hand stretched out from below. Shilian was startled, and his heart raced in alarm. "Lord Windmaster, watch out! Someone's hiding underneath your bed!" Shi Qingxuan's expression also changed. "What?" Just as he spoke, a black figure swiftly crawled from under the bed. Staring down commandingly at him from above was a man dressed in black and wearing a ghost mask. It was hard to tell how long he'd been hiding there, or what he was about to do. Shi Qingxuan writhed, desperately unable to escape his bonds, and Shilian remained locked outside. It was truly a dire situation. But before Shilian could put his thoughts of smashing the window into action, he saw the man push up his ghost mask. "Shut up!" he hissed in a hushed voice. Shi Qingxuan's eyes widened. "Mingchong! Mingxiong! My good Mingxiong! My good pal! Help me loosen these ropes! With just one hand, Mingyi snapped the rope that bound Shi Qingxuan. Shi Qingxuan worked out the kinks in his limbs, then crawled out of bed and rushed over to the window. He clutched Shilian's hands and shook them in earnest gratitude. Your Highness, thank you for remembering me! Shilian patted his shoulders and then hopped into the bedchamber with nimble feather lightness. Wasn't there a restriction seal in the chamber? How did Lord Earthmaster get in? It was hardly a feat, considering my profession, Mingyi said. After saying this, he seemed to notice something amiss. He picked up the rope on the ground and inspected it before asking Shi Qingxuan, Why couldn't you break free of something as trivial as this? Shilian looked closely as well. This was a completely ordinary rope. With such strong spiritual power at his command, why did the Windmaster remain bound for so long by nothing but coarse twine? Shi Qingxuan's face froze, and Mingyi grabbed his left wrist. As he felt his pulse, his expression turned grim. What's going on? Shilian reached out and took hold of Shi Qingxuan's right wrist. After a moment, his discovery dumbfounded him. Lord Windmaster, how did this happen? There was not a trace of spiritual power in Shi Qingxuan's body. Was it that bowl of medicine? Shilian guessed. Recalling the bowl of medicine Shi Wudu was trying to force down Shi Qingxuan's throat earlier, Shilian crouched to check the spillage. However, Shi Qingxuan replied, No, it truly wasn't the medicine. Shilian was somewhat familiar with the healing arts. Judging by its smell, the medicinal broth was likely an anesthetic meant to calm him. At most, it might cause drowsiness. Thinking back to the terrace of cascading wine and the frightening look that crossed his face, Shi Wudu must have noticed his younger brother's condition when he grabbed his wrist. He was likely making his brother drink such a broth for his own good. So why was Shi Qingxuan so adamant in refusing it? No wonder Shi Qingxuan wasn't answering any private communications. With all his spiritual power completely gone, he was no different from a mortal. Lord Windmaster, you've been banished? Shilian blurted without thinking. How else could this have happened? But there were no cursed shackles on him, and there was no way a banishment could be kept under wraps. The upper and middle courts would have caught wind of it in no time. Shi Qingxuan's face was pale, but he seemed unable to stand any longer. Shilian helped support him. Why did Lord Watermaster tie you up? Only then did Shi Qingxuan snap out of it. Right, my brother. Let's hurry out of here while he's still gone. Let's talk after we've escaped. Then he dropped to the floor and crawled under the bed. Shilian bent down and called after him, Lord Windmaster! There was actually a hole under the bed, leading to somewhere unknown. Shi Qingxuan disappeared into it, and Mingyi lowered himself down as well, ready to follow him. After a moment of thought, Shilian decided to follow them too. However, Mingyi came back out. Your Highness, don't involve yourself anymore. Shilian was taken aback by his rebuff. Lord Windmaster has given me generous assistance on many occasions. Now that he's in trouble, I can't just sit back and watch. He's generous to everyone, but when there's real trouble, most people don't return the favor, Mingyi said. How others behave has nothing to do with me, Shilian stated. After we figured out what's going on, I will of course take my leave if my assistance is unnecessary. Shi Qingxuan's voice came from under the bed. Are you two coming? The hole is closing. Sure enough, the hole under the bed was gradually growing smaller. Seeing this, Mingyi leapt inside, and Shilian followed. As they crawled through the tunnel Mingyi dug, Shilian looked back to find the entrance to the hole to have closed on its own. How absolutely magical. Lord Earthmaster, how did you dig this out? He asked in a hushed voice. I thought it was impossible to burrow beneath the heavenly capital. It must be known that the foundation of the heavenly capital was not the same as the earth of the mortal realm. In response to Shilian's questions, he learned the Earthmaster Mingyi was a skilled tradesman prior to his ascension. In his mortal lifetime, he repaired bridges, fixed roads, opened mountain paths, constructed houses, and bestowed property to countless common folk. These astounding feats of service were what allowed him to ascend. Before any major construction projects began in the mortal realm, before any earth was broken, the people first prayed to the Earthmaster for the blessing of successful labor. After ascension, he forged a spiritual device, a shovel in the shape of a crescent moon. Rumor had it that there was no mountain this sacred shovel could not flatten, no tunnel that could not be dug, and no building that could not be entered. This was extremely useful for spying operations in Ghost City. If he wished to enter a secret chamber, he could simply dig his way in, and his tracks would cover themselves. Maybe he could have escaped on his own using his treasured shovel if Huocheng hadn't beaten him to a pulp and significantly damaged his spiritual powers. The Earthmaster had never tried using his shovel to tunnel beneath the residence of any heavenly official. He didn't really show the thing off in general. He usually kept it in storage, which was probably for the best. Spiritual devices of the upper court officials were generally elegant and beautiful, like books, brushes, swords, and fans, and guqin and flutes. It would completely ruin the court's image if among them was a heavenly official who hauled a shovel around all day. Once he heard the explanation, Shilian couldn't help but wonder if he wanted his Puchi shrine to be renovated, maybe he should pray to the Earthmaster too. After crawling for a while ahead of him, Shilian heard Mingyi ask a question of Shi Qingxuan. Was it the Reverend of Empty Words? Shilian also wanted to know the answer. If the Reverend of Empty Words had injured Shi Qingxuan like this, and if news of the incident got out, it would shake up the heavenly realm and cause a huge panic. To think a monster could rob a heavenly official of their powers in such a short time, and that it could cause them to fall and become mortal. It wasn't hard to imagine the mayhem that would create. It was such a serious affair. But after a few moments of silence, Shi Qingxuan replied with a simple statement. No matter who did it, this whole thing is over and done with. His reaction was extremely questionable. He shouldn't have been acting so flippant if he was caught in a trap designed to drain him of his power. Shi Qingxuan wasn't a sucker who'd take beating lying down. A sudden dreadful idea dawned on Shilian. Although awful to consider, it would explain everything. Just then Mingyi ordered, "Silence." They all held their breaths, and Shilian and Shi Qingxuan looked at him. Mingyi ignited a palm torch, and the flickering flames illuminated their immediate surroundings. Mingyi seemed to want to communicate via the spiritual array, but Shi Qingxuan's power was gone, and he couldn't communicate with his mind alone. Thus, Mingyi changed tactics and used his finger to write words in the air. Whenever his fingers traced, a black streak trailed behind like drops of thick ink diffusing in clear water. The other two read what he wrote. Don't speak and don't move. Wait. He waited for everyone to finish reading, then puffed a soundless breath that dispersed those words into the air. Shilian still had some spiritual power left, so he raised his hand and replied in writing as well. Wait for what? For how long? Mingyi wrote, wait until the person above leaves. Shilian and Shi Qingxuan both looked up at the same time. It seemed this underground tunnel Mingyi had dug burrowed beneath some heavenly residences and temples. A heavenly official probably just happened to be above their heads at that very moment. Listening intently, they could hear the sound of steady footsteps pacing back and forth in the chamber above. Judging by those footsteps, Shilian determined that it had to be a martial god. Martial god's senses were sharp. If the three of them weren't careful and made any suspicious noises, they might be discovered. Shi Qingxuan couldn't use the communication array, nor write with ink in the air. All he could do was move his lips silently to express his accusations. Shilian watched him repeat the phrase twice before he could understand what he said. Mingxiong, why didn't you avoid temples and palaces? Couldn't you have dug under the Grand Avenue of Divine Might instead? Mingyi indifferently wrote, there wasn't anyone in this palace before. The Grand Avenue of Divine Might is full of holes right now. Shilian wrote, that's right. I saw on the way over earlier. The avenue is full of holes and craters. Some are even a few meters deep. If we dug into one of those holes by accident, we might come face to face with someone above. And so the three remained as silent as dull rocks, waiting patiently for the heavenly official above them to leave. After waiting for a while, Shi Qingxuan moved his lips again. Are they gone? Mingyi shook his head. Veins popped on Shi Qingxuan's temple, and his angry expression was almost the same as it had been when he was arguing with his brother earlier. He mouthed soundlessly, who the hell is dilly-dallying like this? It's not even the proper hour for sleeping. And what heavenly official needs to sleep, for that matter? Are we under their bathroom or what? Strictly speaking, heavenly officials didn't need to go to the bathroom either. As Shi Qingxuan's lips formed the word bathroom, Shilian felt the hair on the back of his neck stand. In one fluid motion, he shoved the two in front of him down while he backstepped and tumbled away. A sharp blade penetrated the tunnel from above, bearing down threateningly and roiling with murderous intent, and it stabbed into the ground right between Shilian's legs. And that is chapter 58.